Hello, welcome to the Kynaston Institute, and the particular course that we're offering here in the Kynaston Institute is the 21st Century Models of Sports Ministry and Sports Outreach. I'm Dr. Greg Lindenville, serve as the professor. What a privilege it is to share with you some of these models from more modern history that can help us envision and conceptualize what our models in the 21st century need to be. So we've looked a lot in the past few sessions at the beginnings of the muscular Christianity era and some of the founders and leaders of that. And now we're going to start to get into some of those who were kind of the high water marks, if you will, of that era. This particular session is on the Studd brothers. There were three, and in particular, Kynaston Studd. So let's jump in, and you'll look at your PowerPoint notes that you've been provided for the Kynaston Institute, Session 8, and now you're going to look at the second page there. The first page gives you a lot of the background books that you might want to read of or get more involved in, and if you're taking this for seminary credit or university credit and you've been assigned to a quad reading group, some of these books that are listed there would be the one that you might want to read if one of these particular people strike your fancy. So as I said, there were three brothers. You can see the picture there in your second slide on the PowerPoint. C.T. Studd, who we'll come to in our next session, J.E.K. or Kynaston, and then George. They were raised by a fairly wealthy aristocrat in England. Their father had been converted under the evangelistic endeavors while he was in England of D.L. Moody. So now you have these brothers who were influenced by their father and also a little bit by D.L. Moody. They were all world-class cricketers. And for those of us in America, that may not mean a lot, but to a lot of the world, literally billions of people, it means quite a bit. Early on, Kynaston was the most spiritually on fire of the brothers. And his impact on Moody and Moody's missions is quite well known. Now, he was obviously in the English language posh, meaning he was of the aristocratic strata. And we know this because cricket takes so long to play. And so therefore only the posh could play it. It could go for 5 days and still end in a tie. Different versions of it, of course. He was a guy who took that seriously, but you could see in this, as he was going to the Cambridge schools and the various things that he did, he was a very well-rounded person. Well, let's take a look then also at him as he moved out from England. Now, as I said, C.T. became more well-known than Kynaston, but C.T. credited Kynaston with being his example of being this muscular Christian or of being this on-fire Christian. And we have to understand that the era was that Moody had started with the YMCA. Moody then moved into the evangelistic revivalism where he would draw great crowds and he would preach to them about Jesus. And he had gotten away a lot, Moody had, from his earlier work with children and from working with the colleges. And the picture you see in this third slide in this setting is of the Northfield campus, if you will, where Moody for many, many years ran summer-long camps and retreats for college-age people. Well, as I said, he got away from that, but now he comes to England, and Kynaston comes to him and asks him to lead the Bible studies at the college. And it was like Moody went back and found this newfound love, or this renewed love, rather, of working with these young men. And he just resonated with it. It reinvigorated Moody's desire to do a similar thing back in America. And so up to this point, Moody hadn't done the Northfield conferences, but he got this vision for it while he was with Kynaston in England. And you can begin now to see the beginning of what we call the North Atlantic Corridor, that has for centuries now been seeing sports ministers going from England to America and America to England, back and forth. And I've been privileged to be part of that for the last 20-some years, being with my good friends Brian Mason and Stuart Weir and Graham Daniels and others. And they have come to our conferences and we've gone to theirs. It's really been an amazing history that has gone on for hundreds of years. Well, what Kynaston did was he invited Moody. Not only did he influence him to come to the Bible studies in England, but then Moody went back, and then Moody invited Kynaston to come to America to become and be the real-life Tom Brown. Go back a couple of sessions before here in the Yegon Institute and remember about Tom Brown, the fictional character who was portrayed in I can't think of his name right now, Thomas Hughes' novels, and he was viewed as a fictional figure that embodied all that was a muscular Christian. And so Moody invited Kynaston to come and to speak to all of these American campuses. And in fact, he did. He came. In fact, he went to his bride-to-be and said, "We're going to take a 9-month honeymoon." Hey, she says, "That's great. Where are we going? America? Great, I love it. What are we going to do? We're going to speak to college students every day." Well, it did last for 9 months. He came to the USA in 1885, and it was there that he influenced one in particular, John R. Mott, that we heard briefly about last time when we talked about George Williams. You see, John R. Mott was a student at Cornell University, one of the Ivy League schools near Ithaca, New York. And he did not believe that there was a real-life Tom Brown, or that even the concept of a Tom Brown could exist. That is, until the day that he met Kynaston Studd. He sat back at the old botanical hall at Cornell University, skeptical. But as Kynaston began to share his faith, share his winsome testimony, and was obviously a muscular Christian, world-class cricketer that he was, this really influenced Mott. Obviously, this model can still be used when we have robust Christian athletes and coaches that are intimately involved in local churches and intimately involved with living out their faith. They can have a powerful influence when they verbally proclaim their faith. And in fact, those two, Mott and Studd, spent most of the next few days together. And in fact, Kynaston led John R. Mott to a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Notice the relational side of that. That fourth slide now that you can turn to in your PowerPoint notes talks a little bit about the personal lives Now again, C.T. is better known. Why? Because he had a biography written about him. Kynaston had nothing written about him. He lived a quiet life in London, became the Lord Mayor. See a picture of London in your PowerPoint notes. What we know about Kynaston comes from little pieces that we collect from different other things that were written. In fact, this would be a great research project for someone looking for a master's thesis or doctoral thesis. And so this even gives us a little bit of an idea for 21st models about how we need to write things. And the written word can be so powerful. But we really don't know a lot about him and his sports ministry and his continuing influence. But during his American tour, he met people like James Naismith, Amos Alonzo Stagg, C.K. Ober, Luther Wishart, R.C. Morse, John R. Mott, as we mentioned, and of course Moody. And while some of these names may not mean much to you now, as we go through the course, you'll see their models and see how Kynaston Studd's influence on them was so powerful. And it influenced an entire movement, and it continues to influence our movements today. You see, Naismith, Stagg, and Mott were influenced by his own personal embodiment of Tom Brown. And he was so influential with college students across North America because he was a muscular Christian. Ober and Wishart went on, and they were influenced by his work with student ministries, and they really powered through the YMCA student ministries. Moody, of course, by his encouragement to deal again with college students, how important that was. And the importance of summer conferences. We should never overlook a wing of our sports ministry being camping, whether it's day camping or overnight camping. Let me get back to Mott just a second, because Mott said, and you see a picture here of a lot of these men, Mott described his spiritual awakening as quite a struggle. He said as he listened to Studd in the back of that botanical hall, he said, I was arrested by only 3 sentences that he remembered. Here's what Kynaston Studd said, the 3 sentences. Seekest thou great things for thyself? You can see it was a different era and the King's English is in place. Seekest thou great things for themselves? For thyself? Second, seek them not, but rather seek ye first the kingdom of God. This should be the basis of all of our communications as we develop our 21st century models. Well, now you turn to that next page in your notes. Here's some models that we can glean from Kynaston Studd. 1, be a writer. Our sports ministry movement, sports ministry in the 21st century, a great model is to be a writer. Mott was influenced by a Tom Brown novel. And then when he saw the real life Tom Brown, it resonated with him and he came to Christ. Tim Conrad, our colleague that is co-teaching this Agone course, has written a series of novels. They're having a great impact. Maybe God is calling you to be a writer. Not the least of which is to write maybe some biographies of people that are doing it. The second model, reach who you are positioned to reach. Kynaston reached fellow college students. Who are you supposed to reach personally? And while you can direct ministries in your church and other places that will empower other people to reach other people, never overlook your particular call. The third one is to always emphasize the Bible. Seek ye first the kingdom of God. He spoke the Bible and Mott responded. You see, J.E.K. Kynaston convince the why to increase personal dedication to more Bible study. And that's what gave the YMCA its spiritual fervor and power for well over 100 years. And where it still fulfills its original, it's still powered from that Bible. Are we doing good Christian work, but not really getting our people involved in Bible study? We have to transition people from our sports ministry into Bible studies, into the local church. It's a great model. And don't overlook the influence you have on your own family. We're going to learn next time about C.T. Studd, the younger brother of Kynaston. C.T. set the world on fire, but he would not have been there without his older brother. Our model can also be how we influence our family. All right, I'm Dr. Greg Linville. We're talking about the muscular Christianity era. We're learning not only models that they had, like Kynaston, speaking publicly, but also about personal things and interpersonal things that can serve as we begin to conceptualize our own models. It would be great for you to write down on your note sheets now how God's influencing your heart and your mind to think about new models for the 21st century.